The last data collection method that chapter 1.1 talks about are experiments. Okay, if you look at the definition on page 16 of your book, an experiment is something that is going to change behavior. And if you remember from what I was talking about before, the difference between an experiment and a survey or an observational study or a census is that an experiment is going to do something that changes the behavior. Okay? And that change in behavior that experiment is going to do is called a treatment. So quickly look at the bottom of page 16 and make sure that you have the same definition that I have written on here. Okay, an experiment deliberately imposes some treatment on individuals in order to observe their responses. The purpose of an experiment is to discover whether the treatment causes a change in the response. Okay, very important. That is the difference between an experiment and all of the other data collection methods. Right here under experiments on the left-hand side, I have what the treatment is. Okay, something that researchers administer in an experiment. The change that they are doing to that group of people, to that sample of people. Obviously, it's always going to be samples. You're never going to be able to have the entire population do something. An experiment can determine causation. This is a huge idea, okay? An experiment can determine causation, okay? Everything else we're looking at, studies, sample surveys, that's just collecting data, that's maybe analyzing data, figuring out the way things are currently working. An experiment is trying to see what would happen with the change. Again, that change is called the treatment. An experiment can only determine causation. It's this big but here, can only determine causation on the average, okay? Some of you may have known somebody in an experiment, or you have watched some TV doctor shows where they talk about it, but it's going to work for some people, not for everyone, and they're trying to determine if the treatment causes enough change to make it something that they want to do more often. Okay, again, this is just an overview. We're hitting the big points. What is a treatment? What is the difference between an experiment, the types of data collection? Here, when we get into talking more about experiments and maybe doing some of our own experiments, we'll really get into the way you pick your samples and things like that. What is the treatment in example 1.9? 1.9 on page 16 is about, they were trying to determine if vitamin C helps to cure a cold right there. And take a second, pause this, read through it about what's happening, about how many volunteers they have. I'm going to choose a big idea that occurs on the other page, on the next page, page 17. And that idea is that although individuals in the experiment may be different in the different samples, may be different, the groups are going to be the same, okay? Very important here. Maybe individuals were not similar, but the groups were the same. So one group, they gave the placebo. That's an important word we're going to need to know later on. One group got the placebo, the other group got the actual vitamin C. The reason these groups needed to be similar was to make sure that the placebo and the experiment were going to be affecting the same types of groups so that they could weed out any other reason that this might have worked. Again, right now, not super important. We're just going over what these are, the definitions of these types of data collection. But when we really get into experiments, we're going to have to really understand how to choose those groups and what they mean for the causation. So that's going to end section 1.1. Make sure you have these notes taken down. Make sure you have your guided reading questions done. You should be completely reading the chapter now. And I look forward to seeing you guys the next time in class.